From my chair, I look at it three lenses for CMMC. So the first one, modernization. The second one, of course, intel. And the last one, we just finished talking a little bit about insider risk. Modernization is trying to solve a real tension. We have to move faster, and we really need small businesses, non-traditional companies, suppliers, software.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Future of GovCon. This is a weekly podcast that we put together to bring to experts from across the industry and look at what's happening today and how it's going to impact the future. I'm Jake Frazer. I'm the owner and CEO of Precision Talent Solutions. In leading one of the industry's top executive search firms, I get to talk to influencers every day. C-suite executives, board members, growth leaders, top government officials, military flag officers. And on this podcast, what we're doing is we're bringing in these experts from AI, from space, from medical, from logistics, from engineering. And we're sitting down and talking about what's happening in their specific area of the industry and how it will impact the future. So pour a cup of coffee and let's get started. Hey everybody, it's Jake. Welcome back to another episode of the Future of GovCon. Well, we have a great show planned for you today. We bring to you 40 years of experience and knowledge from the military, from the intelligence community here. Today, one of our guests, she's one of our precision experts that is helping companies as they navigate this very interesting times. We have as our guest today, Brigadier General retired Terri Borras. Terri, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jake. Really appreciate having our conversation this morning.
You did such a good job. Terri was on a panel for us. We did an expert showcase where we had over a dozen of our experts there, and she was kind of anchoring the end of the defense panel that we did. I got so much good feedback on her ideas and perspective. We're really excited to get her onto the podcast so she can share it with the entire government contracting community. So I'm setting you up, Terri. Where are you calling in from today?
So I'm just outside Great Falls, Virginia.
Okay. They're in striking distance of the Beltway, right?
Yeah, it's really nice because it's just outside enough that you don't feel you're in a big city.
Smart move. Move. Well, yeah, I mean, Terri's she has an incredible career. I don't think many people can say this. She's truly gone from the bottom all the way to the top of the U.S. military. She has 40 years of service, prior service. I'll let her tell her story about her enlisted time. But she joined the Army back in 1985. Is that right?
That is right.
And she spent a career, obviously, working across so many areas in the Army, retired as a one-star general, where she was the deputy chief of staff over in the Army G2 shop, in the Intel shop. And prior to that, she did so many other things. She worked at CTAF down at Vicenza. She's worked in training young intelligence officers. She's just had an incredible career and touched so many lives. And today she's going to bring us some very interesting perspective, not your normal linear Army G2 Intel dump. She's going to bring some very interesting perspective that's extremely relevant to industry as we navigate a whole new world with AI, new exposure to insider threats, insider risk for our business. And she has some very interesting ideas and perspective around what companies should be doing in the government contracting sector. So we're real excited about that once we get to learn a little bit more about Terri's background.
We're really excited. It's always been an interesting view of the arc of my time in the Army. And so I started as a private back in 1985.
Were you a PFC or a E2?
I was a PV1.
PV1. Okay. Wow.
I was a PV1. And, it was interesting. That was the first time we heard "Be All You Can Be,"
Right.
And it really called to me. If you can recall, all the way back to the late '80s, the U.S. was kind of in a recession and things weren't great. And I was going to university at the time. I had received a scholarship to attend Manhattan College for mechanical engineering. And so, but while I was doing that, everyone else was kind of struggling and everything was really focused on helping me graduate from university. And when Be All You Can Be hit the street, I found an opportunity to help my family as much as my family was helping me. And so I left school and I joined the Army. I joined the Army because there was the promise of the GI Bill. And I knew that I would return and I knew that I would complete my degree. And so my goal was to serve my enlistment of 4 years and then go back to university and finish my degree. But what I found was that I really enjoyed the Army.
Wow.
I found myself in the Army.
Did you have any family members, parents, uncles, anything that were military that influenced you?
Yep, my dad served in the Army. He was a military policeman, and three of his brothers also served, one in Vietnam. So, it wasn't like the military was new to us. It was just that it was new to have a female member
Right. Yeah.
of the family join the service.
What did everybody
And
think about that around Thanksgiving? Like, Terry, what are you doing?
it was quite the conversation because I can tell you my dad was furious,
Yeah. I bet.
furious that I walked away from university to join the Army. But towards the end of his life, as he saw that I was on the cusp of general officer, he finally relented and said, "I think you made the right choice, young girl."
It's awesome.
And that was really, really great to hear.
And now your family now, you're also a family of service. Is that right?
Yes, my husband's a veteran himself, combat veteran, and our oldest son is a veteran, combat veteran, retired now. So he retired before I did.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
That's
hey,
pretty funny in our house.
I'm from a family of service too. Father, brother, grandfather, everybody's military. Mom was a Dodge school teacher. So yeah, it gets in the blood, right? But 40 years, you 10x your original uh intention to serve, and thanks a lot. You've had a huge impact on our country.
Well, you're quite welcome. And, we appreciate the support of you and our nation while we serve. So thank you so much.
It's a team effort, that's for sure. So you went in the Army, you enlisted, and tell me about basic training. Was that just terrifying for you?
It wasn't terrifying, it was challenging. Basic training is designed to break down the civilian and mold them into the military professional that we want the world to see. So completely alien to my experience. There were parts, I'm an athlete, and so there were parts of it that were fun because athletically I could do it. There was no issue. But there were other parts of it that were just incredibly mentally and physically challenging in a way that forced me to look at myself and what I could accomplish. And really, I always say it was the bug that I could never get rid of because once you achieve a challenge that you never thought possible, then it becomes what's the next challenge? What's the next challenge? And so that's how I approached basic training. But it was scary. It was incredibly scary. And I remember calling home, and talking with my parents. The one Sunday they let us call, and I remember saying to my mom, um, I'm not sure I made the right decision.
Yeah.
This is completely crazy. It's just crazy. And my dad must have been hovering
Yeah, I bet.
because the next thing I know is he picks up the phone and in true military fashion, he says, "You made a decision, young lady, live with it," and hung up the phone. And I was like, My God, I can't believe he just did that. That was the initial. The second part of that was, I can't believe he just did that.
Yeah.
And then that really was, I think, the final driver of, oh, I'm graduating basic training.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm not finishing this
There's
now.
no way
I
back.
will show him.
There's no way back. So when you're enlisted, you were in Intel though, right? Intel in the late 80s, early 90s. And so as you became a flag officer, like how much has the intelligence job in the Army changed?
I would say supervisory more than anything. And the loss of the really hands-on. I started as an analyst, and I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the puzzle and the critical thinking required to get to outcomes that we need. And so throughout my entire career, it was applying those principles in larger and larger and larger scale, so that by general officer, it wasn't just an understanding of how to be an analyst, it was an understanding of how an analyst uses all of the other disciplines, brings them together to arrive at conclusions that help decision makers make really good decisions, sound decisions with the information that they have in hand. So, you learn through the different positions that you are sent to, whether it's a staff position or whether it's a command position, how to array the capabilities that you have in intel that you have available to you in intelligence in order to gather the information that you need for key decisions across the board, or just to enable insight and what I always like to call a stream of consciousness of what's happening in the environment so that you're not surprised, you're not shocked. You can kind of see over the horizon what might be coming, and you can enable better planning, better decision making by having an understanding of time and space and when you have to make those decisions, when you need key information in order to make those decisions. So, as an analyst, you're just crunching on the data to make sure that you can provide really good reports. As a general officer, you're looking across the entirety of the globe and trying to determine where the flashpoints are going to be if they're not really clearly defined, because the world can clearly define them for you. And then from there, you can really approach not just capability, but people and what they're able to do to enable those decisions.
Was there a defining moment, kind of a defining moment in your military career that you look back on and just say that really made it all click and help define who I am today? Is there a moment you can go back to?
There's several moments, but I would say the one moment that I would say would help define today would be the day the chief of staff at Special Forces Command looked at me and said, "You need to become an officer." And up until that time, I was pretty good at my job as an enlisted. I was an NCO by that time and had really a good reputation for the type of support that I provided to the teams. But he looked at me and said, "You have reached your peak as an enlisted soldier, and you need to become an officer." And I remember the battle between the sergeant major and the chief of staff, and that was an interesting thing to watch because it was all about me, but I couldn't speak. They had
Yeah.
an argument amongst themselves about what my future should be,
Yeah.
and the chief of staff won out, and so he helped me apply for what's called a green and gold scholarship, and I applied to a couple of universities, and George Washington University really came out on top for me and what I wanted to accomplish. And off I went to do that. And here I stand today.
Great school. Great program. I think you were class of 94. I was class of 95 from a
Yeah.
commissioning perspective. So very cool. So, go a little bit later in your career. I saw you were at CTAF. I'm always interested in that mission. That's probably where you worked with Andy Rawling, if I were going to guess.
I
Uh,
did.
yeah. Talk about that mission a little bit from an intel perspective. And it was focused mainly on Africa, right? And that's also, I think you were there as AI and, and a lot of this exposure was starting to happen. Uh, how was that mission for you at CTAF?
Well, it was interesting first and foremost because General Rohling brought me into the organization not to be an intel officer. He brought me in to be his deputy commanding general. And so, as you can well imagine, the roles are quite different in what I would do. However, I'm still an intel officer, and so I had the great opportunity to work with the MI Brigade in theater, who was supporting all things Africa, and to watch the organization as a whole start to look at how it transitions operations on the African continent in a way that is challenged nowhere else. Because, one of the things that folks forget about the African continent is the tyranny of distance and the fact that there are 52 different countries. And so every situation that you will find yourself in requires a level of pre planning, pre focus, and contingencies to ensure that you can operate effectively, not just as a unit, but operate effectively in country and then with partners and allies, however the mission and the situation calls itself. So, the intel part of that is really how did we look at modernization in light of that tyranny of distance and capability limitations across the board? And so Africa enabled us to have really good testbed for the type of equipment that we were bringing into the intel field. So, the 207th had the opportunity to work, to test, to provide feedback, not because they were in an exercise, but as a part of daily operations.
Right.
And so the lessons learned from that were really effective and enable us to look at modernization in new ways and sometimes either look at different levels of equipment or different levels of modernization or scaling back where the situation called it, depending on the piece of equipment.
That's a it's great perspective as the DCG and an MI officer to look at that COCOM, I think. And then you go to headquarters, right? From there, all that fresh on your brain, and talk about what was going on kind of the last couple of years when you were in the army and you're in the army G2, maybe in light of some of that perspective you had from your time at CTAF.
Well, I mean, walking into the Pentagon is always an incredible endeavor because there's always so much going on in the Pentagon that really finding the thing that is going to enable the overall mission tends to be a learning exercise. I would say that was not the case for myself and the G2. Uh, One of the things for us that we clearly understand is having an understanding of the information that's going to be required to enable operations, period. And so I start with information because it's not until we process all that information and all that data that we get to the intelligence part of it. And so walking in fresh off of my experience at CTAF, now that helped me come in and really catch up in stride to transformation and contact. we were looking at how we were going to change the Army as a service in our transformation while we continue to operate. Now, you can imagine that's a huge endeavor in and of itself. And we had to do that in the intel, in the G2 piece of it, as part of the larger effort without losing sight of what we do today, what we clearly do today and provide, how we are transitioning to future capability. So caused us to make a couple of changes within the G2. I wanted to clarify because I was the assistant deputy chief of staff, G2.
Got it.
So the military deputy to the Army G2 at the time, General Potter, Laura Potter. And so when you walk into that type of environment, one of the things you don't have the luxury of is taking a knee and trying to figure out the lay of the land. So my CTF experience really enabled me to just walk right on in.
I bet.
I was able to talk about what we were doing in the field comprehensively, not just from an intel perspective, but from an operational perspective.
Yeah. Maneuver, everything, training, all that. Yeah. That's great.
So I could talk about how the 173rd was partnering with the 207. So both of them partnering to enable capability that normally we would not have put together. And so that innovation at the unit level really elevated how we could turn around in exercises and do different things. And so you get things like project convergence and the types of exercises that we had during those times to really show us how unique and innovative capabilities can be re-wickered, to use that word, in order to get a better effect with not necessarily changing anything, just putting new things, putting disparate things together to get a new result. So that was one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it was looking at different areas of the globe and what we would need. What you need in Europe may not necessarily work in the desert or
Right.
work in Africa.
Yeah.
And so getting a unique perspective for how you look at that. And then, of course, the Arctic and how we're looking at really over the horizon capability due to all of the limitations that you see in that space.
I know you spent a lot of time focusing on adversaries. And I know that an area of passion of yours is not traditional, you know, big power adversaries, but some of the more subtle adversaries we have, insider adversaries, right? And even now, as you transition out of uniform, that's it's a huge risk area that we have, and it's something I think that you spend a lot of time on. Uh, so shifting from uniform now into industry, what's your view with the with AI presenting a much bigger uh, area for adversaries to penetrate and get access? Uh, what's your view about the risk and what we're doing on the military side, but also on the industry side around this kind of new threat that we have?
Well, overarchingly, I think modernization is going to be judged by survivability as opposed to just speed. Because with AI, we are seeing an elevated and aggregated speed component that impacts all aspects of everything that we do. And so when you look at capability, you have to think about what is its capability and can it survive at the speed with which the environment is developing today. When you look at that, you have to take a step back to go, is AI driving the train or are we driving the train with AI? I think the jury's still out on the answer for that.
I think you're right.
And that's okay, right? If you look at AI as a new capability, which you should, and you look at its opportunity to help us modernize pretty much everything, and it will, then what's the opportunity space surrounding AI that can enable really everything? But within that is a requirement to take a step back and to look at really the governance piece of that and the ethics. I don't say that to put a layer of, delay in what we're trying to do, but we should have a really good understanding of how we're going to use it, its purpose and its use, and then what it is going to enable and the why. Because if we don't do that, we get a lot of the turmoil that we have today, which is, you have a camp that understands AI, you have a camp that doesn't understand AI, you have the camp in the middle that thinks they understand AI, and it's cross pollinating, but is it cross pollinating effectively? Maybe not so much.
No, I know you. I know you've said that the modernization it's an intelligence. It's a broader now intelligence target, right? As we've
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely. So, look, make no mistake about it. Modernization is the adversary's target. I've spent 40 years focused on the adversary. And, what they seek to do does not necessarily have to be something for the future. It could be the something right now. And whether they steal it, whether they acquire it, whether they, I don't know, inject a verb in there. The adversary seeks to either delay, disrupt, destroy capability before we as a nation can field it. And so if you look at it in that lens, then I don't have to wait till you field it. I wouldn't wait until you field it because it might be something I cannot counteract as an adversary. So I'm left with, how do I manage a comprehensive campaign to do one of the things, right? Delay, disrupt, destroy that capability before you can field it. And I will look at what is your weakest area in order to be able to do that. And so that's when we start looking at the differences between, hard acquisition of US capability versus undermining the entire network designed to bring that capability to existence.
yeah, I know you've talked about modernizations, also about you got to include people into that, right? And that it's also about modernization means workforce transformation, both in the military sense, but also obviously in the industry side.
It is. We can't build any capability without our people. And so, if you look at what is necessarily the crown jewels of your organization, it starts with the people that you have. The people that you have are going to enable any innovative idea that you bring to the table. They are the foundation of the capability that you seek to provide in any capacity. And so when you look at it in that way, your workforce should become that first layer of defense for anything else that you seek to bring into the environment, because they're the ones who are going to understand the intellectual property behind it. They're the ones who are going to understand the mission it will be used for. And they're the ones who are going to understand what happens if we can't field that capability. And so when I hear about insider threat or insider risk, I think we need to, open the aperture a little bit, maybe widen it more than just open it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because a lot of people hear that phrase and they immediately think of malicious employees stealing secrets. And okay, that can happen. We've seen it. But in today's modernization environment, the insider threat / risk is way broader than just that little vignette that
Yeah.
I just threw out there.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of fresh off the presses stuff, and I wanted to get your perspective. The DOW has spent a lot of time and effort banging the drum about getting companies through CMMC, right? And up to level 2.0. And just very recently, there's been I don't know, a pivot or a change or a pause on that while they're going through a review. What's your view? If you're an industry executive out there, and maybe you've already made the investment, you have the CMMC 2.0 certification, or you're in the process of doing it, or you're thinking about investing in it. What's your view on how industry should proceed right now, given this pause or pivot on CMMC?
Well, so first, I'd like to start with, this is kind of breaking news, and so we're not exactly sure really what it all means across the board, across industry. If you have already achieved CMMC, good on you. I would say continue to operate under those parameters because it did it did provide us with a really good lens for how to look comprehensively. From my chair, I look at it three lenses for CMMC. So the first one, modernization. The second one, of course, intel. And the last one, we just finished talking a little bit about insider risk. Because, modernization is trying to solve a real tension. We have to move faster. And we really need small businesses, non traditional companies, suppliers, software. There's one more in my brain. Oh, advanced manufacturers. All of those are really key in the defense industrial base. And so, if the compliance burden became too heavy, right, companies are going to start to walk away. And now we don't just have a CMMC problem, we have a modernization problem. So, we have to be able to balance the seesaw of what we're asking with CMMC and what companies can actually do. But the other side is equally important because our adversaries, they're targeting the same ecosystem, and we're trying to expand that ecosystem. They're trying to target the ecosystem. So as an adversary, I'm going to look at subcontractors. I'm going to look at suppliers. What software dependencies are out there that could enable an opportunity. We're all in the cloud now, so the cloud environment, my technical talent, where are they? What are they doing? How happy are they? And then, there's the actual program data. How do we protect that? So I don't think that the pause should signal a pause to protect.
Yep. Very
I
well put.
think, yeah, I think it should be treated as a chance to get protection right. And so if you haven't yet achieved it and you're still working to get there, continue because you're laying a foundation of how you are going to protect not just the capability, but your people. And, just like throwing a rock in a lake, right? All of those waves, expanding waves, is what you're looking at with a comprehensive program. And so, you want to make sure that you enable or you take away the environment that the adversary is studying. You want to take that away from them because they look for the seams in transition, confusion, maybe uneven standards. They look for organizations who are going to take a pause and wait and not continue because that in and of itself provides opportunity. And then here's the place that most people don't think about. And I call it the land of exceptions. And so, people hear CMMC pause, and they immediately tie that to, hey, we can wait. We don't have to do anything yet. There's no requirement. There's no requirement to do anything. There's no auditing of where we are in the process. And that's the reality of the situation. But the requirement to protect sensitive defense information
Didn't go away.
never went away.
That's right. Yeah.
And the adversary's interest, that didn't go away either. And so the overall risk to modernization has not gone away.
Yeah. Very well put. Tell me, just so our audience can understand, 40 years of experience, I mean, truly global experience, and, in ending your career in the Pentagon, in the Army, G2 shop. What can you do to help companies? What expertise do you bring to companies that can help our community?
Well, thanks for the question. One of the things, it's kind of been in the thread of what we've been talking today. More often than not, folks get caught up in the task. We are providing X for the department, or just in industry, or in the private sector. We are providing X. And that's the task we're focused on, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it great because we're a great company, and that's what we do. And that's fantastic. Well, the adversary is sitting there going, I think you're fantastic too. And I think that I'm not going to spend all the money to get to where you are today. I'm going to try to take what you have and use it without any of the investment that you made. Folks don't think about that. They think solely of getting that product to market, and rightfully so. What I would do is really help you take a step back to enable a larger view of what you are bringing to market and the road to market, and the types of things that you should protect on that road in key time periods and key space. Because, once you get it to market, it's out there. People are going to exploit it. They're going to look at it. They're going to figure out how it works. But the road to market is the area that requires the most oversight in how an adversary would look at what you're bringing to market, and how to either take it from you, disrupt it, destroy it. So I kind of help you look at what are the threats out there, not just externally, but internally, in order to get a better sense of how you should protect that capability or that service so that you can bring it to market uncompromised. Because that is
extremely valuable, extremely valuable. And so it's also, it's prevention, so you can focus on, let an expert focus on preventing you from having exposure to this kind of risk, so that you can focus on delivering to the end product, right?
Yeah, sure. Prevention is a great word.
It's awesome. Just a tremendous career, and you watched this arc of intelligence and risk and adversaries, and now you're on the other side. Let's look ahead 3 years. It's 2029. This AI boom that we're in right now. I don't know if it's peaking or we're still at the bottom of the hill. Certainly our risk level is amplified right now compared to 5 years ago, just by the amount we're exposed to adversaries. We've got a big budget ask coming out, from the 1.5 trillion DOW budget ask. I'm expecting a pretty big surge over the next couple of years in spending. 2029, Terri, where do you see, how does this space look? How does this, on the intel, this war, this quiet ongoing war with our adversaries, what does the market look like 3 years from now?
So I would look at it along five lanes. So I already talked about one, and that's that modernization. How do I say? Modernization will be judged by survivability, not speed. And that I put that number one because of this one question. Uh, can the capability survive contact with an adaptive adversary before and after fielding? That is a key question that should live across the door jam of every defense industry professional so that they look at that every single day. Because if it cannot do that, then it is not keeping pace with everything that's happening in the world, everything that's happening in capability, and everything that's happening with the adversary. That's going to be key. The second part, the second one is I think the defense industrial base will become the primary battle space. And by that, I mean, adversaries are going to treat that as the pathway to future capability and U.S. military advantage. That's always been our superpower. And so, why would you not shift focus as an adversary to ensure that you can erode that foundation as much as possible? And so, whether it's a prime all the way down to the smallest of the smallest companies supporting a capability, all of that has now become a target. And so, I talked about a little bit about CMMC and how that can help you shore up the protection of that space. But, understanding of how you're going to ensure that information is also part of the security equation is going to be a key way for industry to look at the future. So, even as you implement, just the information, the larger piece of information tied to that is going to be really important.
Makes sense.
And so, I would say a contractor may think they're supporting a program, but an adversary is going to see that same contractor as the access point and the attack vector for tomorrow's force.
Okay.
So, really, really key for me. And then, I know everybody hates the compliance word, but compliance will not be enough. By 2029, companies who only focus on security as a checklist, they will struggle. They will struggle because, even as we evolve CMMC to whatever it's going to be next, there's an emphasis on resilient cybersecurity, protection of sensitive defense information, and I would even add defense of sensitive commercial information to all of that as a signal that the future is really the future success is going to be tied to companies who can really understand, execute, and enable protection in all of the things that they can do. So that's going to be it's
an asset.
well, compliance may not be a differentiator, but it's still going to be uniquely important to everything that they do because that's how you understand what's mission critical. Because if you know what's mission critical, then you can kind of tell what the adversary is going to want. And if you know those 2 points, now you can start to identify what are the seams between those 2 points that create an increased level of risk. And if I know that, then I can focus and protect those things. Number 4, zero trust. Zero trust is the baseline. It is not aspiration. Zero trust is going to be the way of the future. It is the target level roadmap. And, we are going to have to, as comprehensively within the defense ecosystem, we are going to have to internalize that and move to that because, zero trust actually helps protect the mission. more in the outcomes, because now what you're saying is prove you need the information, prove you should have access to the information, and then continue to prove add whatever. That enables a sense of understanding across the board, which enables the insider risk piece. An understanding across the board that everything that you say and do, everything that you're going to try, is going to be measured against zero trust.
Zero trust. Yep.
And so it should be part of, how we protect people, especially data, identities across the board, and the relationships, not just people to people, but companies to companies, larger to small, that are producing that military capability. And then, because we started talking about it, I'll end number 5, is definitely AI. AI is going to force a new level of trust in data, in the models that we use, in the sandboxes that we enable for testing, and then in the overall ability to make decisions. Because, AI is going to be embedded across the board. Think acquisition, we know intelligence, we know logistics, engineering, we know targeting, testing, and, what we're looking at in the sustainment piece. And so the government is already moving to coordinate with the AI developers. We're watching that all over the news. Cybersecurity providers are really looking at the vulnerabilities and addressing those vulnerabilities to ensure that they don't affect critical sectors, critical infrastructure. And I think we've seen an environment where folks will come to the table to include the AI providers, right? AI and technology. They're going to come to the table.
Team effort.
So by 2029, the AI question is not going to be, can this model perform? It shows you every day that the models are performing. What we are going to have to ensure we understand is, and I go back to my analyst roots at this point, can I trust the data? Was the model designed in a way that I can trust the model? Can I trust the recommendation, or am I still going to be slowed down because I have to verify the veracity of the information? And then, how will this operate when the decision pressure or the decision cycle is under constant pressure to be stronger, better, faster? How does it do that? So if I can trust all of that, then I think we're making inroads and headway with AI. If you can't do that, then I think we still have some way to go.
Yep. Very, very good. I like the 5 points. They all make perfect sense. And I think that the audience, hopefully you're taking notes on that. Those are all good visions of the future. And a lot of them are happening now too, for sure. What's one word you would use to describe your gut feeling about the future in this area?
Protection. Whether it's protect or protection, both those words are, I guess, from an intel perspective, from an intel professional, where I start. We protect the capability that we protect today will enable the future of tomorrow.
Perfect. That makes perfect sense. There's so much to dig into here, Terri. And first of all, thanks for taking the time to be on the podcast. Thanks for 40 years of your life supporting our country. And, thanks for the good work you're already starting to do out here in the industry side. Really excited to see what all you're going to do. But you have a very bright future in this community, that's for sure.
Well, thanks. Thank you very much, Jake. I really enjoyed our chat today.
I love it. Got warmed up and really got going. And I think, for our community out there, again, Terri's one of our precision experts. If you're interested We can help set up a call, see how she can support your team, your organization. Lots of good advisory support, board level perspective here. And also, I'm sure she can help you figure out where the Army's heading in their intel acquisition process across the board. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to set up a call with Terri. We're happy to help you out there. Okay, that's it, Terri. Thank you so much again for your time. You're awesome. Look forward to seeing you around DC when I'm back there, hopefully around AUSA, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say it to the community. I say it every time because I believe it, that we all got to be paying attention. The future of GovCon is happening today. So we'll see you next week on another great episode. Bye, everybody. All right, so thanks for joining me on another episode of the Future of GovCon. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and some of the bold predictions. If you did, take a second, share it on your social media, subscribe on YouTube. If you have any ideas for future guests or topics you'd like to have covered, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always there, and you can always learn more about precision talent solutions at pts.careers. Look forward to seeing you next week on our next episode.